Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Question 27 of Thomas Aquinas Summa Theologiae Prima Secundae deals with the causes of love, and in Article 3, Thomas is going to consider whether likeness or similarity, in Latin similitudo, having something in common, is a cause of love or not. And there's 4 arguments that he considers that are going to be objections, counters to this, which then he'll rebut. So the first one is actually coming from a classic trope, which he finds in Proverbs, but also in Aristotle, that people who are similar to each other don't always like each other. So in Proverbs, it's among the proud, people who are similarly proud, there are contentions. They don't like each other. Aristotle actually brings up this classic, even in his time, saying potters quarrel with one another. Potters who do the same thing don't like each other. So it seems like likeness is actually, at least in some cases, a cause of hatred. Hatred is the contrary of love. The same thing can't be the cause of both a thing and its contrary, so likeness is not a cause of love. So that's one argument that's being made. The second one, when we love something in another person, it's often us loving what we would not choose, or what we more literally don't will for ourselves. So he gives an example here. A person loves an actor. That doesn't mean that they want to become an actor. You might actually say, well, I'm glad that they can do the acting. I can concentrate on my job over here, but I love to go see them. Similarly, a musician. If we all loved music so much, wouldn't we all be expert musicians? No, we like to listen to it, and we can say, I love this group, man. They're so awesome. I'm going to go to their concert. I'm going to buy their albums. I'll get them on vinyl and buy their merch and all that. That's not saying that you want to become those people, right? So he says this wouldn't be the case if likeness was actually a proper cause of love. If that were the case, then you would love in another what you possess already, what you have, or what you would will to possess. So again, likeness, not a cause of love. The third one, people love what they need. And what they need, they don't have. Right? So a sick person loves health because they want to be healthy again. A poor man loves riches. So Thomas says, insofar as they need them and lack them, they are unlike those things. And so likeness can be a cause of love, but unlikeness can also be a cause of love. So it's not always going to be likeness. And then finally, he brings up friendships of utility and pleasure. This is a classification coming from Aristotle that becomes part of the literature on friendship. We love those who give us, for example, money and health. And why? Because we don't have it until we get it from them. So we're unlike them, but we love them insofar as they help us out. And we also have friendship with the dead. And the dead aren't like us because we're alive and they're dead. So clearly there's some important dissimilarities there. So likeness, once again, is not a cause of love. Thomas is going to make an important distinction here. And he's going to say, likeness, properly speaking, propria loquitur, is actually a cause of love. But likeness is, or similitudo, is actually twofold. There's two kinds of likeness. One of these arises from each thing having the same thing as the other one does actually, actu, in actuality. The other arises from one thing having in potentiality, in potentia, or in inclination, inclinatio, what the other actually has. So that would actually address quite a few of these cases here. And he's going to use an example of heavy bodies. A heavy body existing outside of its proper place is like another heavy body that exists in its proper place. As potentiality bears a resemblance to its act is contained in the potentiality itself. We get a little metaphysical there. So what is the upshot for love? He says, the first kind of likeness, having the same in actuality, causes love of friendship, amicitiae, and goodwill, benevolentiae. You could actually feel love towards somebody as benevolence without being friends with them. For example, if they don't know you, right? We think about parasocial relationships where you identify with somebody, but you actually do have the goods that they have, right? So that is one important kind of likeness. Likeness in actuality says, from the very fact that two people are alike, having one form, it makes them to be, in a manner, one in that form. So we're one thing in the species of humanity, and the affections of one tend to the other as being one with them. There's a unity there, right? A unity that's spread over two things. He wishes good to him as to himself. The second kind of likeness, mere potentiality or inclination towards what somebody else actually has, well, that produces the love of concupiscence or the friendship of pleasure or utility, which is not full friendship according to Aristotle. And he says that it's going to be like something in potentiality, having desire for its act. It takes pleasure in its realization if it's a sentient and cognitive being, right? So that distinction allows us to address a lot of these concerns. He also brings up something that goes to the very first one. Why does a potter hate a potter? In love of concupiscence, where you're loving because you desire, you want something for yourself, somebody who gets in the way, somebody who hinders gaining that good is going to generate not love because you're similar, but hatred because you're similar, right? I want to sell my pots. That jackass over there is selling his pots. He's getting in my way of my goal of earning some money through selling my pots. Maybe he's not even selling the pots yet. I just see him working over there and I'm like, that son of a bitch, he's going to undercut me in my pot trade. We could go on with anything else. Rivalries occur like this. People who are proud, to go back to the Proverbs verse, well, they're already subject to this. They all want to be on top, so somebody else is getting in the way. So that addresses the first objection. The second one, he says, well, when a person loves in another person what they don't love in themselves, and I love this phrase, there's a certain likeness of proportion, a ratio similitudinis secundum proportionalitatem, right? Quite a long phrase there. So ratio, a reason, an account, right? Similitudinous likeness, there's a reason for the likeness in accordance with or following from some sort of proportionality. Now, it's not numerical proportionality necessarily. Look at the examples that he's giving. So you love in the other something that's proportional to what's in yourself. If a good singer loves a good writer, how are they similar? They're not similar by being a singer or a writer. They're similar in that each has that which is becoming to him in respect of his art. So this could even extend, a good philosopher could have this love of proportionality for a rock star who's good at their craft, even though they seem much further apart. They're not both creative activities, right? Or a good philosopher could have a similar love stemming from their craft as they do for example, one of my cousins, his craft is working with the irrigation tile systems in fields, agricultural fields, and it's actually quite an interesting job that he does, a career that he's made out of it. I can appreciate that, and I can be like, oh yeah, we're both using critical thinking, we're both using problem solving. See, there's a similarity there, right? So that is good for addressing that. I don't want to be the guy who's laying tile in a field any more than he wants to be a philosopher. But we can both still have this kind of love for each other out of similarity. Third one, he says, he that loves what he needs bears a likeness to what he loves, as potentiality bears a likeness to its act, as stated above. Okay, that's more of a metaphysical justification. It requires you to buy into the Aristotelian and Thomist conception of actuality and potentiality. But if you do buy into that, that'll address that. And then finally, this fourth one, he says that according to the same likeness of potentiality to its act, the ungenerous person loves the person who's generous insofar as he expects something from him that he desires. He can see some good coming. The same applies to the man who's constant in his friendship as compared to one who's inconstant. In either case, friendship seems to be based on usefulness. Now, Thomas is going to take this in a slightly different direction. He's going to bring up these seminal principles in the reason, seminalia rationis. This is a term that goes all the way back to the Stoics and then becomes important through Christianity taking on some of these ideas, Christian thought. The seminal reasons are things that are implanted in us, and those are what allow us, according to Thomas, this is a very interesting point, to recognize virtues that we don't possess. So he says, although not all people have these virtues, for example, generosity in the complete habit, they have them according to certain seminal principles in the reason, in force of which principles the man who's not virtuous loves the virtuous person, being in conformity to his natural reason. There's something that allows us to recognize virtuous behavior, dispositions, even perhaps language in other people, even if we don't possess those virtues, and that allows a certain kind of likeness between us. So, all of these are being offered as ways to show that likeness is indeed a cause of love, but it's a cause of two different kinds of love. Love of full friendship or benevolence, love of concupiscence or the lesser forms of friendship.